This is Moments with Foo with James Foo Torres, better known as Foo, the show that takes you around the world to share interviews with some of the most successful and relevant people on the planet, hear their stories, and get the most important business lessons they have learned on their road to success, and get exclusive advice on how to implement their success into your life and business. Moments with Foo is brought to you by the Strategic Advisor Board and your host, Foo.
Hello and welcome to Moments with Foo. I'm your host, James Foo Torres, but you can call me Foo. It's the name of the podcast. Today I have Vince Warnock, and he's a best-selling author, a publisher, and the host of Chasing the Insights, which is a top podcast in Australia. Amazing, dude. I can't wait to get into this. But first, Vince, how are you?
I am fantastic, man. I mean, first of all, any chance you and I get to hang out is always going to be a lot of fun, but also I get to be on your podcast. This is excellent.
Exactly. That's how I see the podcast. It's just like, well, let's have an interesting conversation and record it. And that's it. Let's have fun with it and just give value. So on that note, let's kick it off with a quick introduction about yourself and your company.
Oh, sure. Well, man, I'll give you the quick whirlwind tour of Vince's life. So my life has never been linear. It's kind of like spaghetti. I was, a radio announcer for a number of years on our top radio station, trained as an electronics engineer, sound engineer. But then discovered my two passions, which is technology and people. And the intersection of those was marketing. And that became my career. So I created and sold a number of businesses. I was always either CEO or CMO there. Came off the back of my largest acquisition ever. So it was a multi-8-figure exit after about 3.5 years of a lot of stress and anxiety. But then joined the team at Cigna Insurance and became the chief marketing officer there. And I was at Cigna for 5 years. And I tell you now, on paper, dream job, like what most CMOs would aspire to be. The pay is ridiculous. The bonuses are embarrassingly large. The work you get to do is fascinating. I got to really advance AI projects. Got to tour the world speaking on stages and got the recognition. At that time, I got picked by Adobe as one of the top 50 marketers in the world, published my first book when I'm there. Everything just seemed amazing. And yet I'm sitting in my office absolutely miserable and feeling really guilty about that as well, Foo, because I realized that most marketers, this is their dream job. You're a chief marketing officer at a Fortune 100 company. This is the pinnacle of your career. And I had that and didn't want it. So I had to kind of process why that was and realize it was because I was incredibly unfulfilled. I wasn't where I'm supposed to be, which is helping people, and in particular helping entrepreneurs, because I've got such a soft spot for entrepreneurship. So that transitioned very easily into what I do now, which is helping entrepreneurs to market their business, to show up and to be visible. And I do that through a publishing company. So I help a lot of people become published authors. In fact, and we've got 100% track record on best-selling authors so far. So I don't want to jinx it, but I'm pretty damn happy with that. But also helping people with marketing coaching, obviously running my podcast, and doing a lot of work in the Web3 space as well. So I literally get to just live my dream life right now. I'm just having so much fun. It's unbelievable.
That's amazing. I mean, and that's why Jennifer connected us, because when I had her on my podcast, she was like, damn, like this guy is like in the Web3. He's a great podcaster, like a lot of similarities because, I love Web3. I'm all about future technology, AI, and I want to dig deeper and deeper. And like now that I met you, it's a great connection to kind of get deeper and learn from the things that you're doing, and just bounce ideas off like the things that I'm doing in my industry and just in general with the people that I relate myself to.
Awesome.
So I always like to ask my guest, do you have any advice or actionable tips for the audience, which are business leaders, that regards to your expertise?
Oh, man, there's the one bit of advice I give to every single business leader, and it makes them recoil. And in a lot of cases, they go, but that seems overwhelming, but it never is. And that is, write a book. You need to be a published author. Like I always talk about the concept of thought leadership. And if you like to understand true thought leadership, it's pretty simple. True thought leadership is just you as a leader having something different to say, like something that may be a different way of explaining a concept in your industry, or a different approach to something, or something unique that you bring to the table, and an audience that's willing to listen to that. So if you those two things combined, you are a thought leader. However, there are all these, in fact, I worked out there's about 13 pillars of perceived thought leadership. So these are the things that when you have them, like for example, being a TEDx speaker, obviously getting on stages, getting on other people's podcasts, all of these things, when you hear these, when people see this about you, they think, oh, wow, this person must be a thought leader. So in their eyes, you're elevated. But the two that are by far the most prominent, one of them is having your own podcast, but the number one by far is being a published author. And it makes sense. It always baffled me at first, because when my first book was published, everyone kept telling me, you don't understand the doors it's going to open for you, Vince. You don't understand how many conferences will start asking you to be on stage, or how many people will want you in their network, or how many people want you to teach this stuff. And I'm like, whatever. And then I published the first book, and I'm like, oh, wow, they weren't even exaggerating. Like they were actually downplaying it because they thought I couldn't understand it. But the reason is, like, most people look at you and go, if you're a published author, you must have something pretty special to say. Now, the reality is, whether you're published or not, you have the same thing to say. But what they perceive is, they look at it and go, writing a book is a huge amount of effort, right? And it's overwhelming for a lot of people when they look at this. So they think, if you're the one that's taken that effort, that's actually made that effort, that actually produced this book, you must have something pretty special to add. So in their mind, they elevate you just based on that alone. And that's, that is true. Most people don't write a book. So honestly, every business owner, if you really want to be a thought leader in your industry, you really want to be considered something a bit different from everyone else, then you really do need to get a published book.
I 100% agree with that. I mean, Imperium Authority has a publishing arm because of that reason, because I realize how authoritative that is, and how simple it can really get to the people that are writing the book. When you pick somebody that already knows what they're doing and doing self-publishing, like you, or like I've done a best-selling book too through my publishing arm, and it's a matter of just having that system, and then you're already an expert, right? Like that's just most likely that you're already an expert, you're doing something. So it's just a matter of sharing your story, sharing your expertise, testimonials, and get people to that journey. Because it's something I like. The way that I like to describe it, other than authority, which is huge, is a way for people to like dip their toes in the water, to get a taste of how do you think, like who you are, rather than just going straight to buying your services or your product. Like they can get into your mind first for usually very affordable price.
Yeah, exactly. Plus the other thing too, and this is the thing we forget, is, in fact, I had this really embarrassing moment where I was sitting there going, okay, I need to come up with some content. I was running a group program, and I was having one of those weeks where my head was all foggy, and I'm like, oh man, I've got too many things running. Oh, I need to do a masterclass with them. And I thought, what am I going to do a masterclass on? I've covered all these different things. And then I was like, man, I need to come up with some fresh content. Then realized, I saw my book sitting on my desk and realized I literally wrote a book. Every chapter of this is some amazing content. I just took a chapter, presented it to them. It was all about curiosity, blew their minds. I was like, man, they gave me such good feedback. And I'm like, it's literally in the book that all of you said you bought and all of you said you read. And now I'm presenting it to you. You're like, wow, this is so fresh. But it helps you to articulate your thinking, helps you to explain your methodologies, explain what you're trying to teach to people. And then just gives you a never-ending resource to use as a lead magnet, as a value add, and upsell, cross-sell, so many other things.
Yeah, no, I love it. I mean, I've seen this, somebody in my network right now, that if you already have a published book, she does your whole content strategy based on the content that you have in the book already. Nice. So you don't have to even just give me your book and I'll just give you a whole content strategy based on just your book content.
I mean, that is a genius idea.
Yeah, now that's something to have in mind, right? When I saw that, I was like, damn, like, because people are like, content. Oh, I already have a book published. Like, taking that and turning it into content is very, very clever. It's all about just setting, because then you already have it, right? It's just like do the strategy. So it's pretty cool. What are some challenges and maybe roadblocks that you've seen, friction points that you've seen from people from, getting to do their book? And I think that's like the main thing, right?
Yeah, totally. I think there's three that I see are the most common. There's one before you even write a book. And that is probably the feeling that every one of you listening to this right now that don't already have a book felt immediately when I said write a book, which is that sense of overwhelm. And the thought of writing a book seems like an incredibly huge task. But the fact is, it never is as big as you think it is. And there are so many different ways you can become an author as well. It doesn't have to be your full, biography or your magnum opus or whatever. It doesn't have to be this full masterpiece of literature. It can be a book about your expertise. It can be a mini book. And we do a lot of these where they're around 70 pages, and that doesn't take long to write at all. Trust me on that. A mini book, which adds value to people. It can be an anthology book where you team up with a bunch of other people, you write a chapter each, and then you put that book out, and you leverage each other's network for that as well. And it could be what I call a medium content book, which is basically a book where it doesn't have as much writing in it, but it has some value add. So a good example of this is journals, where they actually teach you about what you're journaling, and then the journal is actually at the back part of the book. I actually did one of these. One of my books, Foo, was I just wrote this to prove a point around medium content books. I had been on a journey around affirmations because someone said to me, "Oh, you have to do affirmations," and their whole platform's built on it. And I'm like, that's rubbish. I don't have time for that crap. I've got too much to do to stand in front of the mirror and go, "Hey, you're awesome. You're gorgeous," all that kind of stuff. And then they called me on it. And this is an embarrassing moment. They said, "Look, you literally wrote a book on experimentation, and yet you've made a conclusion without even trying something." And I went, "Oh, touche, you cow. That is awesome." So I said, right, I'm going to do this then. I'm going to bite the bullet. I'm going to do 30 days of affirmations, right? But I'm going to take it seriously. I don't joke around with things like this. So it's a true experiment where I'm going to journal what I'm feeling at any point, through this, and journal the change that's doing in me or no change at all. And then I'll also, while I'm doing this, study the neuroscience of it to see, because I'm fascinated by neuroscience, to see how it works. That 30 days is now 3 years. I still do it every single day. And hats off to them for challenging me, because I was completely, utterly wrong, and I'm very happy to be wrong. But it has genuinely changed my life. So I wrote a book about it, but the book is actually about 35 pages long, right? It is just me talking about my journey and the neuroscience, giving you a brief understanding of how the amygdala works and how our prefrontal cortex work and all this kind of things. The rest of the book is literally, every page is a 5-word affirmation. And these were some of the affirmations that I used through my journey. And I realized that I like really short affirmations. So I thought 5-word affirmations sounds really good. So I created like 160, 170 odd of those. So all of a sudden that becomes a full-size book with very little effort. So these are the things that people don't consider. You can do a journal around that, a planner, all these kind of things as well. The second challenge that comes up is when you're actually writing your book. If you're writing a book about your area of expertise, and I do encourage you to do that, then the second thing that comes up is creative block. And this is where, and it's not necessarily, people talk about writer's block, where you're sitting there in front of a blinking cursor and you've got no idea what to write. It's not necessarily that. It's more around, you've got something to say, but articulating it just seems like it's really difficult to try and explain it. So for that, there's multiple different things you can do. You can do a bit of deep work into where that's coming from, which I do encourage. But one of the best things ever is a tool that's available to all of you for free right now, and that's ChatGPT. Like literally going in there, just trying to explain to ChatGPT in a conversational style what you're trying to say, and just say, can you rewrite that? And it'll come back and it'll structure it in a way that usually creates a spark in your brain to go, now I know how to explain it. And then you reword that into your own writing. Obviously, you don't copy and paste from ChatGPT because it would be very boring. But it does help you to articulate what you're trying to get across. So that's a really good way of dealing with that creative block. And it will also, using those kind of tools, will accelerate your writing as well. It'll help you to write faster, to keep in a flow, which is really, really important. And the last kind of barrier is probably the biggest barrier, and that strikes every single person. I don't care who you are, unless you're a sociopath, and I'm pretty certain none of you here are sociopaths, you will get hit by imposter syndrome and self-doubt. And this happens usually as you near the end of the book, your book writing process, because all of a sudden your subconscious brain's going, hey, by the way, this book's now going to be in front of people and they're going to read it and they're going to think you're an idiot. Or they're going to go, who the hell do you think you are writing a book? Like, what makes you think you have anything special to say? So this is a process that every author goes through. And to give you an example of that, Foo, I was, when Adobe recognized me as one of the top 50 marketers, we actually were all together. They'd only picked the top 25. And we all went out to dinner together, and I'm there with Seth Godin, with Brian Solis, Anne Handley, just a bunch of all my heroes in the industry. And I remember talking to some of them, and they knew that I was writing a book at the time. That was my first book. And they turned around, they said, oh, so you're going through the whole self-doubt thing now, are you? And I went, yeah, but I don't want to admit that to you. What do you mean? And they were like, yep. And one of them, I won't name him because I don't want to embarrass him, but he was writing his 8th book, 7 previous books, all New York Times bestsellers. Like, this guy is someone that every time he puts something out, I buy it, I consume it, I love it, I learn from it, and I grow. And he was writing his 8th book, and he said, oh yeah, I'm at that point now. I'm sitting there going, all these internal voices saying to me, you should have stopped 5 books ago, or everyone's going to read this and think you're an amateur and you don't know what you're doing and you're making this up as you go along. And I'm like, wait, what, you? And he goes, yeah, man, we all go through that. So to do that, you really just need to understand imposter syndrome. You understand what you're going through, but getting yourself an accountability coach or writing coach will genuinely transform that. So actually aligning with someone like Foo and myself, where we can actually go through that process, encourage you, keep you on track and things as well.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, because I felt that, I also have a book out or two, because I had a chapter on another one, and yeah, the same thing. It's like, damn, this is gonna get out. Like, people gonna think about me, and I got that for sure. And it's
the funny thing, man. I genuinely think anyone who's written a book or is in the process of writing a book was just nodding away, going, "Damn it, get out of my brain," because that's what we all go through, all of us.
Yeah, and then that's why something that I say in basically every episode is that one of the key words for this podcast is perspective, because I bring people here. So, you hear from Vince, you hear from a lot of people doing all kinds of different money in different industries, and telling you like, hey, doesn't matter if I'm a multimillionaire doing all these things, I still think that I have imposter syndrome. I still wake up and think, oh my God, I'm so far behind. Like regardless how far they already are. So that is something that we all go through. So it's a good thing for the audience to be like, oh, okay, I'm not alone, right? Everybody goes through that. So
I can tell you now, it doesn't matter what you're going through, you're not alone. And that's something that people need to understand. As I need to understand on a regular basis as well, because every time you face a barrier, you're like, oh man, I'm the only person in the world that's ever gone through this. And you realize that most people have felt the same. We just don't talk about it. I had this with a peer of mine in the UK, and she went quiet on me for a bit. Like, she, every day she was doing a Facebook Live, every day she was engaging with people, suddenly did radio silence. And I'm like, oh, wow. I thought, I know she's not on holiday, because I know when her holiday is coming up, because we catch up on a regular basis. So I thought I'd better reach out and make sure she's all right. And I sent her a message, no reply. Sent her a message. I'm like, I'm going to hound you until you reply. She goes, oh, fine. I'm okay. Now, from this person, high extrovert like myself, when they say I'm okay, that translates to I'm really not okay. I'm spiraling at the moment. I really need help, but I don't know how to word it. I don't know how to ask help. So I said, look, jump on a Zoom call with me. And she goes, oh, I can't. I haven't done my hair, haven't done my makeup. And I went, well, neither have I. I'm bald and I don't wear makeup, but and she goes, okay, fine. Jumped on there, and she was spiraling, like all of us go through as entrepreneurs. And the reason was she had achieved quite a bit of success. Her group program was doing really well. And she was getting all these opportunities, and two of them she got 2 of these opportunities at the same time. One of them was from a reporter from Forbes who said, look, we really want to profile you and the work you're doing around this area. And we want to, basically we want you to write up a piece for us. So they gave her the guidelines. The other thing was a corporate that had reached out to her and said, we really need this in our thing. We're going to pay you damn good money. Can you put together a proposal? And those 2 things at the same time, a week later, she hadn't started either of them. 2 weeks later, she hadn't started either of them. And the reason is because she thought, once I do this, they're going to realize I'm an amateur, and they're going to realize they reached out to the wrong person, and all this self-doubt kicked in. 2 weeks became 3 weeks, 3 weeks became 4 weeks. And now she's at the point where it's embarrassing. And she felt ashamed of the fact that she hadn't even started these things. And they were trying to contact her, and she would ignore their messages. And she was just going into the shame spiral. And she was telling me all of this and being very vulnerable and very open with me about it. And I just turned around and said, oh, man, I do that all the time. And she goes, wait, what? You? And I said, yeah. I said, this happens every now and then. I said, I had one of this 3 months ago, had a insurance company over here in New Zealand, a brokerage, who reached out and said, look, we need your help. We know everyone we talk to says you're the expert on this. So can we? And I said, well, I don't get out of bed for less than $50,000, because I didn't want to work with them. And they went, yeah, let's do it. I mean, damn it, now I have to work with it. They said, cool, put together a proposal. And I realized, here's the kicker. I realized I could clearly see what they needed to do. This is stuff I could do in my sleep. I'm like, man, this is like, I can see the roadmap for them for success. This is easy. I could do that in a weekend. And it was a weekend's worth of work. And they were going to pay me, it was way more than 50,000 in the end. But I procrastinated and procrastinated and procrastinated until I actually had to swallow my pride. I reached out to them and said, look, I'm really sorry. I actually was very open with them and said, look, I'm really sorry. I spiraled in my own head. I thought if I put together a proposal for you, you're going to compare that with agencies. I'm not an agency. And and they went, dude, just get your ass in here. We'll get a whiteboard. We'll get some markers. We'll map out where we need to go and we'll do it from there. I said, done. And when I told her that, the sense of relief on her to go, I thought I was the only person that dealt with that. And I'm like, no, most of us deal with this at times. So we've got to understand that you're not alone and we need to talk about these things a lot more.
Definitely. I mean, it's just like that mental health and being able to have a support group, being able to have mechanisms to unstuck yourself, because you gotta get stuck, right? Like you just said,
absolutely.
It's just a matter of developing support systems that includes people, activities, and things to even create the awareness. Oh, this is what's happening. Let me talk to these people and let me let me do these things that I know they're gonna get me out of it, right? So it's just kind of having like an emergency kit, but for your mind, basically, right? For those blocks. And that's something that everybody should have. And I'm blessed that I get things like this all the time, and I just call my friends, call my family, and talk to my circle, my advisors and everything, and then just like, okay, let's get moving. And I just keep pushing, and that's how like I've been in business now for getting close to 3 years now, like it's a little bit over like 2 years and 9 months, and it's been a journey for sure, a lot of things, but it's just a matter of getting the right people around me that can support me. So and then one kind of like last topic that I like to cover with you, and you kind of sneaked it in a little bit, is that AI and Web3, right? Because I know that you're very big into that. So regarding that AI and Web3, what advice do you have for people to start getting, like, obviously there's a lot to do with it, so what do you be like something to where to start and what to look ahead for what's coming?
Well, definitely. The first thing I would say to you all is, for all of these things, they're incredibly overwhelming when you first look at them. So it's kind of like writing a book. You look at NFTs, for example, anything in the Web3 space, you look at AI and using ChatGPT even, and you're like, but I don't even know where to start. I'm not some machine learning engineer or machine language engineer. I'm not an AI specialist or a data scientist. You don't have to be. Honestly, the best thing you can do is play. And with ChatGPT, I highly encourage every one of you to play with that. Every one of you, like, in fact, my other bit of advice cheekily is buy my book, because I put a book out about ChatGPT for marketing. I highly encourage you to read this kind of things. It's really simple. And when you start using it, it will blow your mind, the potential and what it will unlock for you. And what it does is it accelerates your content creation, accelerates your ideation, accelerates your creativity, and just can provide you with so much knowledge. It's unbelievable. So definitely play around with that. When it comes to the Web3 space, again, playing around is a little bit more risky in the NFT space because there are some bad eggs there. But start to understand the technology. Like, I take time every day. I schedule 2 different times. I schedule creative time and I schedule learning time. And creative time is working on something that cannot be related to my business. So I've just written a children's book in my creative time. I do artwork in my creative time. I even create artwork for NFTs in my creative time, those kind of things. But the technology time, the learning time, is really about picking something like NFTs or smart contracts and actually just trying to learn and try to put it into simplistic terms and use ChatGPT to explain it to you. Half the time it explains it way better than anyone else can. But then play around with that, because if you understand the potential of what smart contracts and NFTs can do for your business, it'll blow your mind. Like, I'll give you an example. One of my clients is a musician in this space. And, was basically finding a difficulty. They didn't have a record label because they fired their record label. And then they were like, I'm going to make my money off touring. It's going to be so easy. I'm going to tour the world, doing concerts and make lots of money. And then, of course, the pandemic hit and they went, oh, well, there goes all of my revenue, all of my income's now gone. So they looked to the Web3 world and thought, how can I use NFTs? And they produced a really amazing project where, you buy this NFT, you get a song with it. You also get a custom piece of art. You get all these benefits that unlock as well. Like when you own this, you can go to free concerts for this musician. You can, depending on the type of NFT you've got, you can even get studio time with them. So many other things, right? So that's awesome. Sold these things out, made more money off that than basically 150 million Spotify downloads, made more money than they've ever made in their recording company before, and their recording label. But here was the kicker, and this is the bit that people don't realize about it. The other thing it did was it connected them with their true fans. And there's a prevalent theory in marketing called the 1,000 True Fan Theory. If you've never read the paper on that, you just need to. It's brilliant. But basically what it means is you don't need millions. She didn't need to be at Wembley, with 100,000 people there or whatever. She doesn't need to be in Rio with 500,000 people there singing along with the songs and things. She needs to connect with her true fans. And we realized what we had done around this when in New York, she turns up to a bar, said to everyone, if you've got my NFT, you get free entry. I'm going to do a concert here. Standing room only, right? This place is jam-packed. She was like, oh my goodness, Vince, this is crazy. And I'm like, yep. But then where the magic happened was the moment she started to strum the guitar and she went to sing the first lyric from the song, and every single person in that bar knew every word. And they sung along at the top of their lungs. And it was overwhelming. She cried. I would cry too. I cried just hearing about it. My goodness. But that was the moment she realized this NFT series wasn't just essentially wasn't just trying to make some money. It wasn't trying to make a new revenue stream. It was finding the people that are there with you. And these are the people that are dedicated to making you succeed, because the beauty of smart contracts and NFTs is when you succeed, they succeed. So they're basically buying into you. So the more popular you get, the more well-known you get, the more value those NFTs hold. So the more value that they actually have holding those things. So definitely play with that, experiment, learn. Don't be afraid of technology, honestly. And the one thing to note is every new technology has its own terminology, has its own kind of, words they use, its own little in-group and all this kind of thing. But the only reason we use fancy words in these things is because we're all incredibly insecure. And we think if we use fancy terminology, then you'll all think we're way more intelligent than we actually are. The reality is very different. Learn, you'll be surprised how quickly you'll learn it, you'll pick it up.
Yeah. And it's just a matter also of people trying to say the same thing with different words, so they gotta somebody already used this word, so I gotta use other ones, right? So that's what comes into that too. But yeah, no, I completely agree. Like the thing about the NFT space and just Web3 in general, but more so the NFTs, is about that creating that community and getting people behind a project. So it's almost kind of like crowdfunding or like having because people are like buying shares on you basically, but they are NFTs, right? Like they're just like this digital currency in the blockchain. It's non-fungible, right? Like you can't change it. So the transparency that provides, the direct access to the creator that provides is amazing. So that's why I believe in it, and I really love that.
The other thing to note about it as well, Foo, is now's the right time to get into this space. And I say that for two reasons. Number one, because you're not, it's definitely cheap. There's the third reason. But the fact is, it's not too late, right? It's an emerging technology, and you may think you're too late to it, but I tell you now, it's changing every day. Because we're learning new things, we're developing new things, we're trying new things. So now's the time to get in. You're not too late at all. But the other reason is because the market is so unstable at the moment. And as you said, Foo, it's really cheap at the moment because, the number of high profile kind of collapses, like the FTX exchange collapse. We had the Terra, which was a stable coin that collapsed. We've now had, of course, the Silicon Valley Bank collapse. All of these things cause instability in the markets. So that looks like the worst time to get into NFTs, because you're like, well, this is really, really volatile. But no, now's the time to get into it, because I tell you now, it will stabilize. It will get better. It has to. And I'll tell you why. If you look at who's investing in this, you look at the fact that Starbucks have set up an entire arm around their rewards loyalty system, which is all based on NFTs. You've got eBay, you've got Disney, you've got Dior, Gucci, Christie's, you've got all of these major brands heavily investing in Amazon as well, heavily investing in NFTs and NFT technology. which means they have entire teams that are sitting there going, where is the world heading? We want to be ahead of everyone else. They're in this space. And now's the time for you to get in there and learn, and you will be ahead of 99% of the population. It's insane.
Yeah, I mean, it is definitely a thing. It's just a matter of making sure that you're taking blue chip, right? Or supporting specific artists that, okay, this is an artist that whatever happens, I like his journey right now, right? So it's just a matter, because it's there's nothing like nothing shows more support than putting your money where your mouth is. You can share something on Instagram and, oh, my friend or something, but when you're putting your money where your mouth is, that's real support right there. So have that in mind, because another thing that what I see that this is going is, this is gonna be decentralized everything. So social media soon enough, like let's say I would estimate like three years or so, maybe a little more to 5 years, but the new Instagram is gonna be decentralized. The new Facebook's gonna be decentralized. And now people, because what says more about you, the pictures that you edited and put there very perfect, or the type of art or tokens or whatever that you bought, right? Like where you put your money says a lot more than this perfect picture of you that you took at the perfect moment and edited and all that, right? So that's where like social media, damn, what's your social media? It's like, oh, let me see. And then you see your public wallet and you're like, get a sense of who is this person based on like, oh, like we have this in common. I have one of these. And the reason that I bought it is because I'm a socially responsible business leader, or all those different things, right? Like you're putting your money where your mouth is, and it's public there. Like that is the future of social media. Because then after that, it's just, oh, there's chats here that you can talk in this group privately, right? Like where the Discord and all these things, and all this is gonna be way more immersive and everything interconnected.
I will say though, even taking it a step further, I don't even think it's going to be Facebook and Instagram. As much as Meta have invested in NFTs and now they're kind of second guessing themselves on that, and they invested in the metaverse, literally changed their name to Meta. The reality is they are still a centralized company that still abuses and uses your information, your data, and leverages you as a commodity. I think the disruptor that comes in is going to be somebody who actually understands what people really want, understands that people aren't okay with that kind of thing. And that's when the decentralized social media platform, I think, will flourish. So we've still got a long way to get there, but I've been saying I'm in the happiest point of my life right now, Foo, because for the last probably 15 years, I've been talking about how AI is going to change marketing and entrepreneurship. And I'm like, man, it's going to change the world. It's going to change the world. And it just couldn't. Every year, I'm like, right, it's going to be the big thing for the following year, like everyone, because I make all my predictions. And now, finally, it's actually happened. Like last year's prediction was, and again, AI is going to change the world. But this year, we're actually seeing that. We're seeing ChatGPT, where people can use this for, like I said, content creation, ideation, etc. We're seeing DID, where you have fully virtual avatars that speak. They're like deep fakes. They're incredible. You can use them on your websites and everything. We see all image generation through Midjourney, through Instant Art, through Blue Willow, all these different platforms where for free in most cases you can create one-of-one custom artwork that you can use on your website, imagery and photorealistic imagery, so much more. And that's just scratching the surface of what's coming out. I think I'm testing at the moment about 17 different projects through OpenAI and Hugging Face. And these are game changers for everyone. But it's because the technology is finally caught up with where we knew it was going to head. So mark my words, NFTs and decentralization is on that same journey, just like you said, maybe about 5 years away.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, there's the movement of like the no code, right? That is kind of being pushed. Now we can see it because like AI is that interface to be like, I can put text, I can talk to you. And now like, oh, like I saw like, oh, make me a website with this and this, blah, 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 boom. And you got a website that's functioning, right? It's
one of my favorite tools at the moment is Tome. I don't really use it myself, Tome, sorry, Tome. But it's literally you go in there and say, I'm doing a presentation on ChatGPT. And that's all you type. And then next thing you know, it's put together a full slide deck and all the content for you to talk about as well. Now, it's not customized to you and there's no stories in there and you've got to bring it to life. But it just blows me away that you can come up with something so quickly off one little command, off one little request from it. It's insane.
I love it. I mean, That's why it's important to listen to things like this, to be like, hey, we're in the trenches, like where we're testing these different things. We're talking with people that are very deep into like projects and stuff like you, Vince, and be get that into. Let me start consuming something so then I'm not like behind. So, I just want to say like thank you for doing this. I mean, you give us so much information. I know that I enjoy this conversation. So thank you for taking this time.
Oh, honestly, it's absolutely, well, first of all, just hanging out with you, as you know, is so much fun anyway, but it is an honor to be on here, man. I really appreciate it.
No, yeah, no, I really appreciate you taking the time, really. So I know there's gonna be people that are gonna be like, I need to talk to this dude. So how can people find you?
Well, I make it super hard. No, I'm joking. Make it really easy for all of you. Just go to chasingtheinsights.com. That is my home of everything. It's where my podcast is. It's where my books are. It's where you can see my NFTs, all these kind of things as well. So go and connect with me there. You'll also see a bunch of links to where you can connect with me on social media. Highly encourage you to do so, unless you're a spammer. If you're a spammer, don't bother. I'm only going to be rude to you. But everyone else, I'm not rude at all. I don't bite, and I love meeting new people. So book a free strategy call with me. Check out my ChatGPT for Marketers book. I highly recommend that to all of you. And I'm completely biased, of course, because I wrote it. But yeah.
Yeah, but thank you. And hopefully you send all those links to my admin so that we get all this done here, because this is very good information. So again, just thank you. All this information. I look forward to, I'm going to be in your podcast coming up. I'm also, I intend to this is not just like a podcast thing, right? It's just around like a relationship that we're building. So I'm excited to see where we're going. Cause I mean, I want to stay like, you're so deep into it that I'm learning from you and being able to maybe work on a project together or getting something together. It will be really cool. I mean, man, you're doing something amazing. I'm excited to keep following your journey and build this relationship even more.
Likewise, man. Likewise.
Thank you. So this was Vince, Warnock, and Strategy Foo, and this is us signing off.
Thanks for listening to Moments with Foo with your host, Foo. Please leave your feedback and visit strategicadvisorboard.com to get the latest and greatest business advisement on the planet. Follow us on social media for updates, and we will see you on the next episode.